Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another video and to a brand new hero concept for Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, with the hype of the Mandalorian lately, I wanted to jump in and do a hero concept for one of the characters from the show, and you've probably guessed who it is already. It is the Mandalorian. No, it is not Baby Yoda, as much as everyone would want that. It is actually the Mando. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to discuss all of how his playstyle would be, some star cards, some abilities, and some emotes and skins at the end as well. So make sure you guys stick around for the entire video. Now, if you guys do enjoy this video and all the hero concept series that I've been putting out, make sure to leave a big thumbs up and let me know down in the comments which hero you want to see a concept made for yet, and then I will choose one from the comments to do in the next episode. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. We're going to talk about a few things in the Mandalorian's playstyle first. The first thing being, of course, his health. Now, I have him at about 650 HP, which is similar to most of the blaster heroes. They're usually between 650 and 700, and I think this is a good point because you will see later on in the star cards that I do have a buff for this, but I think having him at 650 puts him right around the same level as Boba, and I think that's a really good idea. The first weapon that I'm going to have as his default weapon is the blaster pistol that he carries around with him. I'm not exactly sure what model of blaster pistol it is, maybe someone can let me know down in the comments, but I think this would be good to have his default, and then I'll show you guys again in a minute with the abilities where his pulse rifle comes in. His melee attack is going to be a flamethrower, exactly the same as Boba Fett's, although I have toyed with the idea of holding down, R3 or the right stick, depending on what you're playing on, or if you're PC, whatever your melee button is, holding that down for a long flamethrower, similar to the Flame Trooper, but it does run out quicker. So I don't know, it just depends on what you want to do with that. You could go either way. I think having it exactly the same as Boba is probably a bit more balanced, but being able to hold it would be cool because it would be different as well. So I've got that for just the standard melee, and then one of the abilities that I'll discuss later in a minute is to pull out the pulse rifle, and I have that if this is out at the time, if you use the melee ability, it will use the electroshock on the end of his pulse rifle as opposed to using the flamethrower. I think this would be cool to kind of distinguish a difference between the two, and it'll still give all the abilities a usage that we see in the Mandalorian TV show. It would be a crime not to include this because I think it would look really cool if you could just jab someone with it and electrocute them and have them go flying backwards. That would be the coolest thing, and then you could switch and pull out the rifle and just shoot them to finish them off. I think that'd be awesome, and that's a cool idea that would kind of mix it up from standard melee abilities. In terms of his run speed, I would put him slightly faster than Boba Fett just because he is running around with a blaster pistol and not an EE3 like Boba Fett is, so he could be a little bit faster. I don't know if Han's actually faster than Boba, but I would probably put him around about that speed, maybe a tiny bit quicker. And finally, in terms of his dodging, I would just give him 2 standard combat rolls like most of the blaster heroes. Anyways, that's all the initial playstyle stuff out of the way. Let's get into the abilities. The first ability I have is going to be the left ability, and I have called it the Hunt, and this would be kind of like Bloodhound for anyone that's played Apex Legends, his ultimate ability where he can track enemies. In the most recent episode of The Mandalorian, he actually activates his helmet, which gives him the enemy's footprints down on the map. Not only would the Mandalorian gain this, but you would also get infrared vision, similar to like Bosk's middle ability, where he can actually see enemies' heat signatures. I think this would be really cool, and it's something we've seen from the episodes, so it kind of lines up with giving him this ability as well. I have it activating and giving you a 15-second timer to start, and then of course I do have a star card later on that is going to buff the timer of this with every single kill, so we'll talk about that in a minute as well. The middle ability, like I mentioned before, is going to be the Ambon Pulse Rifle, and that is of course the weapon that the Mandalorian carries on his back, and we've seen him take it out and use it a couple of times throughout the episodes, and it is very powerful, actually making enemies explode upon impact if they're hit with it. So I think this is an amazing ability idea. I've got it working similar to Iden's Pulse Cannon, where he can pull it out at any time and then put it back away, so you don't have to constantly have it around, because it does have quite a slow fire rate. So I think having him with his blaster pistol out as the default, and then being able to switch to this for a little bit more kick, would be a prime opportunity for Battlefront 2. I've got this working kind of like with a 1-second charge up time, so it's not exactly an immediate fire, and you can't just keep spamming the trigger. Think of it similar to the charge rifle if you do again play Apex Legends. That weapon takes a slight charge up and then it fires off a large pulse of energy. This is kind of how I've got it working. So you've got to hold the trigger down just to shoot it off, and once that 1-second timer's up, it'll fire off again. I've got a slow fire rate for it, so it's kind of going to pack a lot of punch with between 170 and 180 damage. I'm not sure exactly where I'd put it, but I definitely want it to be able to one-shot infantry unless they're a heavy or a buffed officer. I think this would be great, and it kind of lines up with the show because he does one-shot most of the enemies and they all explode when they get hit by it, so it makes sense chance to have them able to kill infantry on one hit. Now moving over to his right ability, which is actually the favorite of mine that I have given him. I think it's going to be the coolest out of all of them. I know we're probably not going to get Mando in the game at any point, but it's still cool to speculate about. And the right ability is going to be called Whistling Birds. Now for anyone that hasn't been watching the show, Whistling Birds is an ability that the Mandalorian has. The Mando armor maker person, I forget what they call them, she actually gives him Whistling Birds on top of his armor that he gets when he gets the Beskar plating. But what Whistling Birds are, they're like little, think of Yondu from Marvel with his arrow, how it shoots around and kills anyone in the vicinity. These are like little darts, so they're going to fling around and kill all the enemies that are in front of you. And I've got it starting with targeting up to 2 enemies, doing 130 damage. And then of course we're going to have star cards in a minute to buff these as well. So Whistling Birds is a really cool one, probably my favorite ability out of the 3 that I have given to the Mandalorian. Now speaking of star cards, let's get into them. The first one, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be the Beskar armor star card, where he has fresh Beskar armor and he is going to get a max health bonus of 100 extra points, taking him up to 750. I don't want to make him too powerful and give him 800, so I think 25 per level of star card is the way to go with this one. The second star card is going to be for the hunt, and it's going to increase the duration of the hunt ability with every kill that you get. So similar to the other star cards that work on a timer, every time you get a kill, that actual timer resets a little bit and gives you more time with that ability. The next one is going to be an increased blaster damage while the hunt is active. So if you activate that ability, your standard blaster damage will be increased as well. And I've kind of got the default weapon doing maybe like 100 to 120 damage per shot. I think that's kind of a good point to put it. Not too powerful, not too weak, but also with the ability to boost up the damage with this star card. The next one is going to be that the Mando receives 25% less damage while the hunt ability is active. This is actually taken away from one of Leia's abilities where she uses her E11 and takes less damage as well. So it's kind of basically taking away from that to put it on the Mando. The next one is going to be for the pulse rifle ability, and this is going to increase the damage with the Ambon pulse rifle up to 210 damage. So 10 extra damage with each level of the star card. So you started off at 170 and then you can get it all the way up to 210 with a purple star card, giving you the opportunity to one-shot heavy troopers unless they have a shield in front of them. The next one is going to be an increased fire rate with the Ambon pulse rifle. So instead of having a 1 second charge up time, you can get it down to half a second so that it is much quicker to fire off. I don't know how this would work because it's probably not really canon with how the weapon actually works itself, but hey, it's still a cool idea to think about, and this is all speculation anyways. Now, the last couple of star cards are for Whistling Birds, and the first one is going to be that Whistling Birds can target up to 6 enemies. With each level of star card, you can target another enemy that's in front of you. Obviously, the base default is going to be 2 enemies, but with each one, you can get it all the way up to 6 with each level of star card, and I think that's going to be a really cool one. Think of Lando's sharp shot, but in like a close range vicinity, with these Whistling Birds just flying around, pelting through everybody's skin. I think that would be an awesome ability to see in Battlefront 2 and something that I would love to have in the game. The next star card is also for Whistling Birds, and it is going to be bonus damage within half of its radius. So if the Whistling Birds are in close vicinity of the enemy, they are going to do bonus damage if they're in half the radius of the ability's activation zone. That way you can fire like a quick projectile and get them pierced right in front of you, so that if you do connect with someone that's at close range, it's more than likely going to kill them and you don't have to worry about them creeping up on you. Now, the second last star card is actually to work in tandem with that last one. This is going to give you just a general bonus range with the Whistling Birds ability. So that way, if you equip this star card and the one I mentioned previously, you can have bonus range as well as bonus damage within half of its radius to kind of stack those two together. And finally, if 3 enemies are hit with Whistling Birds, the recharge time is reduced up to 40%. This is another one that is taken away from Lando, because with his sharp shot, if you hit more than 3 enemies, he gets a 40% timer reduction on the cooldown of his ability. So I think this would be cool for the Mando's Whistling Birds as well, and just a perfect way to top off all of the star cards. So that's everything in terms of cards for the Mando. Let's talk about a couple of skins. The first one is going to be his standard episode 1 appearance, where he does have like the brown plated armor on him, kind of your default appearance this would be, and it's pretty basic. I also have the Mando in full Beskar armor, so once he gets the Beskar plating, it's all chromed out and silver and looking really cool. That's going to be skin number 2. And then the third one that I came up with is the Muddy Mando. So I think it's episode 2 or 3 where he fights the rhino thing. When he comes out of that fight, he's just absolutely covered in mud, and I think this would be the best place to do it. I'm pretty sure it is episode 2. I think that would be a cool skin, you know, something different just to mix it up, because we haven't seen too many appearances for him just yet. And then possibly anything that comes in the future episodes of the show, we could include those as skins as well. So keep your eyes out when the next couple of episodes do air, if there is anything different that we could add. And finally, to wrap everything up, I came up with a couple of voice lines and emotes. Now, obviously not all of them are exclusive to the Mando, but a couple of them were pretty funny, so I wanted to throw them in there anyway. The first one is "This is the way." That's one we hear a fair bit towards the end of the Mandalorian episodes that we've had. I think episode 3 had it said multiple times between all of the Mandalorians, so I think this would be a cool one to have. The next one is from episode 1, where he says to his enemy, "I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold." I think that would be a really dope one if you killed someone and then you emote that over their body, or you just emote that before you start fighting someone. So that's number 2. Number 3 is "I've got to get me one of those," which is the jetpack that he was talking about in the end of episode 3 as well. And again, it's not really one that's kind of exclusive to when you're fighting your enemies. It's just like a general voice line that would play throughout gameplay. If he saw Boba flying around, maybe he could say, "I've got to get me one of those." That would be really cool as well. And finally, the last one that I do want to talk about is the one that is not exclusive to the Mandalorian. He doesn't actually say it himself, but I still think it would be really funny to have in the game, and that is the voice line, "I have spoken." Again, one of the characters from Mandalorian says this a lot between episodes 1 and 2, and I just think it would be really funny. It's pretty much a meme now, and I think it would be awesome to include in the game as well. Anyways, that is going to be everything for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. It was a really fun one to do, and I did edit a lot more images, you know, in terms of the star cards and things like that into the thumbnail. That took a lot more time, so I wanted to actually put a bit more effort into these ones because I did have a bit more time to work on it this time. So I hope you guys all enjoyed it and appreciated the video. If you did, smack a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and make sure to drop a comment down below who you want to see a hero concept video for next, and I will get to work on that one for next week. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am the Twisted Jedi, and may the Force be with you always.